Hello everyone, my name is Caitlin, welcome back to my channel. So it's been a while since I've wanted to talk about a Disney Channel sitcom, and this is honestly just mainly because they haven't really done anything in recent years that has really impressed me or just like made me curious enough to actually watch anything that they're putting out. You guys know I feel like Bunked has overstayed its welcome. I watched the first episode of the new season of Raven's Home, and I don't know what it was about that, but I just felt like the vibes were so off and maybe it should have just been canceled with the previous season. I have been enjoying Secrets of Sulphur Springs and The Owl House and Amphibia were great as well, but those aren't sitcoms. And then you have all of the ones that were canceled last year with Sydney to the Max, Just Roll With It, and Gabby Durant, which I guess wasn't technically a sitcom, but you get the gist. And honestly, from what I saw from those shows, they seemed great. Like, they seemed to cover some great topics for kids, which is awesome. We love to see it. But for me personally, like as an adult, they just never really piqued my interest because I'm clearly their target demographic and they care what I think. No, I kid. But honestly, just in recent years, Disney Channel US just hasn't really piqued my interest, which is why I ventured into their international content. But what can I say? I'm still a big Disney Channel fan at heart, so whenever they do announce a new show or movie, I'm still curious to check it out. So a few weeks ago, they premiered two brand new series, The Villains of Valley View, which is a sitcom, and this new drama comedy series called Ultraviolet and Black Scorpion. I watched the first two episodes of both series, and while I did enjoy what I saw of Ultraviolet, it was The Villains of Valley View that really got me hooked. And so I thought I'd go back to my roots and do a quick little review of the first three episodes of the series because I'm really excited to see where the show is going to go from here. But before we jump right into it, I feel like we just have to address the elephant in the room, which is that I feel like Disney Channel has somehow just turned into the superhero channel. We've got The Villains of Valley View, Ultraviolet, they're also airing episodes of Miraculous and Ghost Force, and not to mention the upcoming series as well with Marvel's Moon Girl and the new animated series Hamster and Gretel. And I'm not necessarily saying that this is a bad thing, I'm just very surprised to see that all of these series got greenlit at the same time. And I mean, I don't really know much about the production industry, so I don't really know how that happened, but I'm very intrigued by it all, and I'm curious to see which ones will outlive the others. Like, obviously I don't think Miraculous is going anywhere anytime soon, but the other ones I'm definitely curious about. But with all that being said, let's jump right into my review of the first three episodes of Villains of Valley View. Alright, so let's start off first with a little bit of a background on the show for those of you who maybe haven't even heard of it before. It is created by the same creators as Lab Rats, so Chris Peterson and Brian Moore, whom I love. Now, is this mainly just because they have both interacted with me on Twitter? Possibly, but either way, we stan. I also feel like Lab Rats is just one of Disney XD's finest, and so I can't deny that the show is in great hands. The series was originally called Meet the Mayhems, which I honestly kind of preferred, but I do like the alliteration that Villains of Valley View has as well, and the subtle nod that it gives to Wizards of Waverly Place. So the show follows a family of villains who have to give up their life of evil and become a seemingly normal family to stay safe from the head of the villains, the superheroes, and then obviously the authorities as well. And what I've seen so far from the cast, I have just loved. The only actors I was familiar with going into the show would be the kid playing Colby, as I know him from Stuck in the Middle, and the guy playing Jake, as I know him as Stick from Ashley Garcia, which I just love how this guy will probably continue playing a high schooler for a very long time. Like, I know he's only 19, but I just feel like he has a very young face, you know? Oh, and then of course you've got Mrs. Dabney from Good Luck Charlie in that neighborly role once again, but this time she's got some power over the family as she is also their landlord. So the first two episodes are up for free on Disney now, so even if you're not located in the States, you can use a VPN to watch them, or you can purchase the series on the Google Play Store / YouTube, which is what I did. And I'm sure it's just a matter of time before the series goes up on Disney Plus, and so that'll be great as well. So let's move on to the first three episodes. Now, don't worry if you haven't gotten a chance to watch the show yet, because I'm not really going to be talking about direct spoilers about any of these episodes, but more just like the general plot points that they followed. But if you don't want to know that either, you can skip ahead to the next section of this video. So the first episode follows the family getting adjusted and attempting to be normal, with their middle daughter, Amy, struggling the most. And so her older brother, Jake, suggests that she befriends their neighbor's granddaughter, Hartley, which is a particularly difficult task for her, as Hartley is a very like sunshine and rainbows kind of gal, so basically the complete opposite from Amy. And so shenanigans ensue and the girls accidentally end up in an alternate dimension in which Amy has to explain her family's secret to Hartley. And as far as pilot episodes go, I felt like this one was pretty solid. Like, I will admit that I was a little bit hesitant from the start, like things were a bit cheesy, and then once we saw them in all of their villain get-ups, I was like, alright, this is a lot to take in. But as the episode went on, I found myself really engaging with the story. I love that there is an overarching plot to the show with the family being on the run, and I felt like the reason why was revealed really well in the first episode. Also, what can I say? I just love a good secret reveal. Like, even though these girls did just meet like moments before, I was still just all for it. I made a video kind of similar to this topic with like the international Hannah Montana trope thing, but I feel like I gotta do one now just about like best secret reveals, because I don't know what it is about them, but they just hit every single time. Now, the second episode was a direct follow-up to the plot introduced in the first episode, which I really liked. Basically, the family is freaking out about Hartley knowing their secret, and so they decide to get some blackmail on her so they can trust that she will be able to keep it, but then the whole thing ends up turning into this wacky competition. And I really enjoyed this one. Like I said, I like how the plotline continued from the first episode, and I also loved the dad in this one. In the third ep, we have Colby feeling sad that he never really got to play his role in their villain family, as his powers didn't come until they were already on the run, and so Amy and Jake decide to take this upon themselves and give him a proper villain experience. And then in the B plot, you have Hartley trying to help Amy's parents seem normal when the head of the neighborhood watch party comes to visit. And this episode was probably my least favorite out of the three, but I did really like how we got to see all three of the siblings together as opposed to just Amy and Jake, because I was really curious to see their dynamic as a three. My only thing is that I just kept thinking throughout this whole episode, just like, how on earth is Colby's power gonna be like helpful in battle? Because he's a shapeshifter, and so I'm sure he can shapeshift into like some cool things that would help him, but so far we only see him transform into like common household objects like a water cooler and a sweater. I mean, I guess he could transform into like a bear or something, and that would have been more useful, and like I'm not really that familiar with like Marvel or DC, and so I'm sure that there are some really cool shape-shifting villains or superheroes out there that utilize their power well, but for me, watching this show was just hard because we didn't really see any of that. They even make a joke of it in the beginning of this episode where he shapeshifts into a chainsaw, but then he doesn't know how to start it when he is in chainsaw mode. I don't know, I just found it interesting, and I'm really curious to see how the power evolves as the show continues. Now let's talk about the similarities I noticed just from the first few episodes with this show in comparison to other children's series. So first of all, like I mentioned earlier, Wizards of Waverly Place. Obviously the title, Wizards of Waverly Place and Villains of Valley View, are kind of spitting images of one another, but the comparisons don't end there. First of all, you've got the three siblings all kind of being around the same age and gender, with Colby, Amy, and Jake, and Max, Alex, and Justin. I also found that the dynamic between Amy and Jake reminded me a lot of Alex and Justin, with Amy being more of the rebellious one and Jake being more of like the good guy. But what I found interesting about that dynamic in this situation is that Amy is more of the one to get the praise for acting the way she is, whereas Jake is more of the odd one out in this situation. And I feel like I don't really know enough about Colby's character yet to really compare him to Max, but so far I really like him. I hope he doesn't just turn into like the dumb little brother sort of character like I've seen Disney do time and time again, because I just feel like he's got more potential than that. And then of course you have the fact that both families have magical abilities that they have to keep a secret, and I honestly don't even know if these similarities were intentional or not, but either way that probably explains why I am enjoying the show so much. Like, I mean, it even comes down to their names, like Alex and Justin versus Amy and Jake, like it's the same letter, but nonetheless I'm really curious to see what other similarities arise as the show continues. I've also seen a lot of people online bringing up the comparison to the Nickelodeon show The Thundermans. I've only seen a couple episodes of this show because it didn't really seem like there was an overarching plot and none of the ships really interested me, but I can see why people would make the comparison to this show, and from what I saw I did really enjoy it. I mean, obviously the only thing I can really draw a connection to is the fact that they're both like superhero themed and they're both keeping their superpowers a secret. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below what other comparisons you could see to this show, because I cannot give them for you, unfortunately. And then of course you have Descendants. I mean, the show is about this villain family who now should try to be good. Like, I feel like the comparisons just speak for themselves. I can also see a strong connection between the characters of Mal and Amy and Jake and Evie, in the sense that Jake and Evie are both the type of characters to find the change easy and feel as though they never really fit in their previous environments to begin with, whereas Mal and Amy really fit in more so before, and so they're going to struggle more with their identity and this new shift in environments. Oh, and then I also drew comparisons to Liv and Maddie and Good Luck Charlie, just because I found the whole like house setups to be very similar. So let's move on to why I think you guys should give this show a chance, because I'm sure the title of this video is going to come across very clickbaity, and I don't want that to be your takeaway. Like, I do still think that this show is good and worth a watch. First of all, just like I mentioned earlier, I feel like the cast is great, and I just love the whole family's dynamic with one another. Some highlights for me were the dad, just like I mentioned earlier, especially in the second episode. I like both of the parents a lot. I feel like they got the whole like wacky Disney parents thing down to a T. I think my only complaint with the mom is that I just don't understand why she's British and nobody else is. Beforehand, I was excusing it, where I was just kind of like, oh well, like they're villains, maybe she just wanted to have like a fun accent. But then in the third episode, it's actually mentioned that she is from England, and so I just like, I don't understand that. But I do love the dad. I also love Amy. I feel like the actress who plays her has some excellent comedic timing. She does remind me a lot of Alex Russo, but I do still feel like she is her own character, if that makes sense. Like, I don't feel like the actress is like trying to be like her. That was just the character who came to mind for me while I was watching her. I also really loved Amy and Hartley's dynamic, which brings me to what I wanted to talk about next, which is just the shipping potential that this show has. After I watched the first episode, I was like, yep, I am sold on Amy and Hartley. They seem like such a good non-canon ship, and I say non-canon just because I doubt that they will go there, because they do seem pretty platonic platonic and I do love them as like a friendship as well. But like obviously if it does end up going in that direction, I will not complain. I would love that very much. And as much as I did enjoy what I saw from the first 2 episodes, I honestly wasn't really too sure if the show would be able to like hold my interest unless we get some actual like canon shipping content. Because shipping the besties is fun and whatever, but for me that also kind of gets old when I'm not given any sort of like canon romance plot lines either. And so I ended up tweeting something along those lines, and guess who replied to me? That's right, Brian Moore, one of the show creators. And so he basically said, keep watching, you might get what you wish for in the next few episodes. And so once I read that, I was like, all right, I'm sold, I'm gonna keep watching. And so I'm really hoping that this tweet is referring to an overarching romance plotline and not just like a one-off episode, but I also feel like it has to be. Like, why would he have interacted with me if it was just gonna be a one-off episode? And so if that's the case, I'm really hoping that it will be between Amy and Hartley or Hartley and Jake. Honestly, I'm down with either. Because although we haven't really seen much of Hartley and Jake, there was that moment in episode 2 where everybody's trying to blackmail her and he was just so against it. Like, that could just be because he's trying to be a good person, or that could be because there are some feelings blossoming. I mean, who's to say? Either way, I really hope that this romance plotline is going to be between one of these ships that I mentioned, because I feel like we don't really have any other characters to work with. I mean, unless they introduce a new character, which I'm also down for, but I feel like I like it better when they are series regulars. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Villains of Valley View. Overall, I can just see so much potential here, and it does really remind me of previous shows that I have loved from Disney, like Liv and Maddie or Wizards of Waverly Place. Like I mentioned earlier, the overarching plot of the show has me just so excited to seeing what's to come. I just hope they don't make the same mistake that Best Friends Ruin Ever did, where they resolved that overarching plot at the end of the first season and then had nowhere to go from there. But honestly, I'm not really that concerned because, like I said, I feel like the show is just in such great hands. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm just very excited to seeing what this romance plot that I've been promised will entail. So please leave your guesses in the comments down below. Also, let me know if you have watched this show, if you are planning to watch this show. I can't wait to read all about it. Anyways, Cater Tots, that is all I have to say for today. I hope you'll have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. Man, oh man, it's been a while since I've reviewed a show or movie on here. I mean, maybe I'll review Stampede Free Show next week. Who's to say? I mean, it's not out in like the US yet, so maybe I should wait, but I don't know. Only time will tell.